And then we have our second book. Two published books. Yeah, I'm insane. This book's slightly more voluminous, which is just another way of saying bigger. Not in terms of size. They're both the same size. This one, the Silver Linings, weighs in at, and I don't have a biblioteca or bibliography and an index. Who needs that crap? This is all from my own brain, so I don't need any references. That's the reference, my brain. 333 pages on Silver Linings. And then the book that I published a couple years prior to that in ebook form is Thank God for Atheists. But it's kind of big. It's kind of a lot to absorb. But I can tell you that it's 383 pages. Table of contents. And Thank God for Atheists. It's a reference to the Mark Twain. It may have been a lecture, but I think it was one of his journals or essays. It was an essay that he wrote for, I want to say the Saturday Evening Post, but I don't think, anyway, I don't know enough about my Twain to be able to tell you for sure. But anyway, this is from one of his essays when he said, you know, when I look at Christians, I think I'm an atheist. Which, of course, is pretty humorous because how can one be without the other? Or how can one not be with the other? So anyway, it's a what you call an oxymoron. So I decided, you know, why not write a book called Thank God for Atheists? Thought it was quite original apart from stealing it from Twain, until I found out there was at least 2 other books with the same title. But thankfully they were both after I published mine 10 years ago, me being the selfish pig that I am. But let's go through the table of contents, shall we? Also, if nothing else, there's great quotes at the beginning of every one of these chapters. For example, Francis Bacon said, all colors will agree in the dark. So here's our chapter breakdown. One thin dime. I can't think of why I called it one thin dime. Oh yeah, the heads and tails, the duality that's built into all things. The flipping of a coin. Oftentimes a person's fate or a nation's fate is either symbolically or literally summed up or comes down to, is distilled down to the flipping of a coin, the proverbial, sometimes literal flipping of a coin. So one thin dime refers to how what people aren't realize that the very concept of a dime is illusory. It's a concept. It's artificial. A dime doesn't mean 10 cents in the natural world. A dime means a little bit of copper and a little bit of zinc and quite a bit of tin, all melted together to form this abstraction called money. So that's what it's about. It's talking about how fake money is. The idea that, I think the quote in that is, we're the only creatures that live on this planet that think that we need money in order to live here. Something like that. So we have one thin dime, we have a fish out of water. That's a little bit of biographical material, autobiographical material in this case, about, well, me, frankly, not to put too fine a point on it. I have always felt like a fish out of water. But it's also about, bear in mind, I was still a hardcore liberal when I wrote this book, and I was still gunning for religion, not just Christianity, all religion. And I stick by my guns. Only I'm now no longer a liberal. This neoliberal movement, which is what prompted me to write the second book. I was still a nice, good, straight ticket Democrat, liberal, believing that we could save the planet. Until I realized, of course, that the planet is just fine. It doesn't need us to save it. It needs us to leave it the fuck alone, which is what I see they're clearly not doing. So I'm still liberal in the sense that I'm a very concerned. It's emblematic. I'm still concerned about the environment. I still love the environment. I still love this planet. I just no longer am deluding myself into thinking it needs me, the grand, exalted, special me. It doesn't need me. It just needs me to step the hell aside and let it do its thing. So a fish out of water is also about how people think when they find a fish in a rock that it means that on a mountaintop, it means that, hey, there used to be fish on top of this mountain, and they think the world was flooded. So it's about how ludicrous literal interpretations of things like the Bible and the Rig Veda and the Quran, literal interpretations can only get you in trouble. And this, being as how this is a book about atheism, there's going to be a lot of that kind of thrust in this book. And that's probably the one my liberal friends will like, because they get this vicarious. I kind of, with all due respect to them, kind of outgrew that. I got tired of bitching and moaning about how stupid people were, especially when I realized that stupidity doesn't know a political affiliation, that everybody is pretty much equally dumb and set against each other now. And that's what I'm trying to talk about in this book. Thank God for atheists who don't believe in God, be they politician gods or be they supernatural gods. You can see both operate with the exact same plot. So, going on, Chapter 5, the long-range forecast. Talking about how the planet is actually warming, and it doesn't necessarily have anything to do with us. We're contributing, but we're not causing. But I didn't get into the chemtrail stuff, and because when I published this 10 years ago, or when I wrote it 10 years ago, I wasn't really, I was still on the fence about that stuff, you know. I'm no longer on the fence about that stuff. The planet is warming. It's not being caused by humans. The cooling is being caused by humans, most definitely, but the warming is natural. It's been warming since the last ice age ended, hence the last ice age ended. It didn't just end, and then, boom, the Earth just goes into stasis. What caused the Earth, what caused the ice to melt, is still happening. Convolutions. Convolutions, I think, is talking about not only the convolutions in our brain that gives us our imagined nobility, and some actual mobility too. I mean, in defense of the brain, it's a remarkable feat of natural selection. So I'm talking about natural selection there. Chapter 14, Our Better Natures. This was my idealism when I was still allowing it to exist in my brain and giving me comfort. False though it turned out to be. In my cynicism, I realized idealism is bullshit, like everything else. It's okay to be idealistic as long as you realize it's just idealism. Convolutions. Our better natures. That's what I would like to think we're capable of becoming if allowed to become. If the people in power weren't hell-bent on keeping us forever in stasis. They don't want change. And it's not just the Republicans or the conservatives, it's the liberals that don't want change. Because without the liberals, the conservatives would have nothing to bitch about, and without conservatives, the liberals would have nothing to bitch about. And each of them can cater to their bases, but neither of them expect to do anything because the people who write the checks don't want anything done. Very cynical, very depressing, but also very freeing if you allow yourself to punch through the horseshit, the haze of horseshit, and get to what's really going on. I am a little angry. It's winter. I'm not playing tennis. Self-made purgatories, well, that's self-explanatory. We are all in purgatories, and we are insisting that we stay in them. But I go, of course, one step further, I'd like to think, and say that they're not actually self-made purgatories at all. They are perpetrated upon us. Purgatory is perpetrated, created for us. And we're not, to the point where it's normalized, to the point where we're no longer aware of it. Chapter 19, Wretched are the meek. Reference to the Bible. I'm starting to feel a little guilty about attacking religion by this point. I'm trying to apologize a little bit. So wretched are the meek. The meek shall inherit the earth. But the meek are also, it's very important that the meek be wretched. Very important that and it's very important to the people in power that the meek be kept meek and be kept wretched. And then, loosely speaking, is the close, some final thoughts on page 345. So, thank God for atheists. Thank you.